The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had stood for 10,000 years. Its walls had seen empires rise and fall. Its floors had felt the weight of 1,000,000 delegates from 1,000 worlds. Today, it would witness something new. Today, it would see humanity walk away. Ambassador Do Kang stood at the center of the chamber. He was an old man now, his hair white as snow, his back slightly bent from decades of service. 40 years he had given to this council. 40 years of smiling when others insulted him. 40 years of reaching out hands that were often slapped away. He had believed, truly believed, that patience and kindness would eventually win. He had been wrong. The vote results glowed on the massive screen above. 7 against, 4 in favor. Humanity's request for a permanent council seat had been denied. Again, for the 12th time in 300 years, Counselor Threnvax of the Valorian Collective spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like cold water. The humans are too emotional. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They are unsuited for permanent representation. Other counselors nodded. Some did not even pretend to hide their smiles. Doan looked around the room slowly. He saw faces he had known for decades. He saw species whose worlds his people had saved from plague, from war, from starvation. He saw delegates whose children had been educated by human teachers, whose sick had been healed by human doctors, whose ships had been rescued by human crews. Not one of them met his eyes. In the observer gallery above, Captain Una Park watched in silence. She was 52 years old, commander of the humanitarian fleet, Eternal Dawn. Her ships had crossed the galaxy 100 times, bringing medicine to the dying, food to the hungry, hope to the hopeless. She had never asked for payment. She had never expected thanks. But she had hoped, somewhere in her heart, for respect. That hope died today. Beside her stood Lieutenant Jisoo Beek, young and idealistic, barely 30 years old. Jisoo had joined the fleet because she believed in the mission. She believed that kindness could change the universe. Now she watched the council laugh at her people, and something inside her grew cold. Down in the chamber, Do Kang did something unexpected. He did not argue. He did not protest. He did not list the countless times humanity had sacrificed for ungrateful allies. He simply bowed once, a deep and formal bow, and turned to leave. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Kang, Counselor Threnvax called out, surprise in his voice. Do you have nothing to say? Doan paused at the door. He turned his head slightly, just enough to speak over his shoulder. What is there to say that has not been said? What arguments remain that have not been ignored? You have made your position clear, Counselor. Now we will make ours. He walked out. The doors closed behind him with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. Within hours, the orders went out. Every human ship, every human station, every human representative received the same message. It was short. It was simple. It contained no anger, no threats, no demands. It said only this. Come home. Captain Una Park read the message 3 times. Then she called her crew together on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. They were good people, her crew. Doctors and engineers, pilots and medics. They had given years of their lives to helping strangers who would never thank them. You have all seen the Council's decision, Una said. Her voice was calm, steady, showing nothing of the storm inside her heart. You have also seen our orders. We are to withdraw from the disputed sectors immediately. All humanitarian operations are to cease. Lieutenant Jisoo raised her hand. Captain, there are 3 colony worlds still dependent on our medical supplies. If we leave now, I know, Una said softly. Believe me, I know. But we have been commanded to return. Earth has decided that 300 years of service is enough. We will honor that decision. The crew exchanged looks of confusion and pain. They had never abandoned anyone before. The idea felt like a betrayal of everything they believed, but they also understood. They had all seen the Council's contempt. They had all heard the whispers behind their backs. Too emotional, too soft, too human. As if caring for others was a weakness. As if empathy was a disease. The Eternal Dawn turned toward Earth. Behind it, 300 other ships did the same. A fleet of mercy, departing without fanfare. No speeches, no ceremonies, no goodbyes. At Station Meridian, the last human supply ship finished unloading its cargo. Food, medicine, and water purification equipment. Enough to last the station 3 months. After that, they would need to find other suppliers. The station commander, a tall being with silver skin and 6 arms, watched the human ship prepare to leave. He had never spoken to the human crew directly. He had always sent subordinates to handle such matters. Humans were useful, but hardly worth his personal attention. Now, as the ship's engines powered up, he felt a strange sensation. Something like loss. Something like regret. But he pushed it aside. The humans would be back. They always came back. It was their nature to help, whether they were wanted or not. The ship departed. The station commander returned to his duties. He did not notice the silence that followed. He did not feel the cold that crept into the corridors where human voices had once echoed. Back on Earth, Ambassador Doan Kang walked through his garden. Cherry blossoms were falling, pink and white against the evening sky. He had planted these trees 30 years ago, during a brief visit home between negotiations. He had thought, then, that he would never have time to watch them grow. Now he had all the time in the world. His assistant, a young woman named Houn, found him there as darkness fell. Ambassador, the Council has sent 17 messages requesting clarification. They want to know what your final words meant. Doan smiled, but there was no joy in it. Let them wonder. For 300 years, we explained ourselves. We justified our kindness. We apologized for caring too much. No more. From now on, they will learn from our silence what they never learned from our words. He turned back to his cherry trees. The blossoms continued to fall. And across the galaxy, the lights of human ships winked out one by one, like stars dying in the cold darkness of space. The withdrawal was quiet. That was what disturbed the galaxy most. When species left the Council in anger, they made noise. They sent threats. They demanded attention. The humans did none of these things. They simply packed their bags and walked away, like guests leaving a party that had stopped being fun. Dr. Suji Han had worked at the Central Medical Station for 15 years. She had treated over 50,000 patients from dozens of species. She had learned 7 alien languages just so she could comfort the dying in their own tongue. She had held hands with creatures who did not have hands, had sung lullabies to beings who could not hear, had stayed awake for days to watch over patients whose own families had abandoned them. Not once had anyone said thank you. Now she moved through her ward one final time. The beds were being transferred to local staff. The equipment was staying behind, a gift to the station. Her personal medical library, 3,000 books collected over a lifetime, sat in boxes by the door. She would leave those too. Someone might find them useful. A young patient watched her with large, frightened eyes. He was 12 years old by human counting, a boy from a species that lived in the outer rings. Suji had been treating him for a blood disease that would have killed him without human medicine. "You are leaving," the boy said. It was not a question. Suji knelt beside his bed. "Yes, but you will be fine. The treatment is almost complete. The local doctors know what to do. Will you come back?" Suji was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his forehead gently. I do not know. But I want you to remember something. When you are grown, when you are strong, remember that someone cared enough to help you. And when you see someone else who needs help, do the same. That is how kindness survives. Not in the people who give it, but in the people who pass it on. She stood up and walked out. She did not look back. If she looked back, she would cry, and she had promised herself she would not cry. Not here. Not where they could see. On Platform 7, Engineer Taiwan Ru was dismantling the emergency response beacon he had built 12 years ago. It was one of 800 scattered across the galaxy, each one capable of sending distress signals to any human ship within 100 light years. For 12 years, those beacons had saved countless lives. Ships in danger, stations under attack, colonies facing disaster. All had called for help, and help had always come. Now the beacons would go dark. Taiwan worked carefully, removing each component with the same love he had shown when building it. Beside him, his assistant, a young man named Jinwoo, asked the question that had been burning in his heart. Why are we doing this? These beacons save lives. Taiwan did not stop working. They do, but saving lives was never our job. It was our choice. For 300 years, we chose to help. Now we are choosing to stop, but people will die. Yes, and that is a tragedy. But it is not our tragedy anymore. We offered our hands in friendship, and those hands were slapped away. We cannot force people to accept our help. We cannot make them grateful. All we can do is show them what our help meant by taking it away. The last component came free. The beacon went dark. In 100 star systems, emergency networks lost a vital connection. No alarms sounded. No warnings were given. The beacon simply stopped existing, as if it had never been there at all. At the Valorian embassy, Ambassador Sora Lee collected her personal belongings. There were not many. A photograph of her family back on Earth, a small stone from her hometown, a letter from her mother, yellowed with age. The Valorian aide who had been assigned to her stood in the doorway, watching with confusion. Ambassador Lee, I do not understand. The council vote was about a permanent seat. It was not a vote to expel humanity from the alliance. Sora smiled politely. No, it was not. We are leaving by choice. But why? One vote does not. One vote? Sora turned to face him. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes were hard. This was not one vote. This was the 12th rejection in 300 years. This was 3 centuries of being told we were too emotional, too soft, too human to deserve respect. This was generations of our people dying to protect worlds that would not even acknowledge our existence. She paused, took a breath, forced her voice back to neutral. We are not angry. We are simply tired. And when you are tired, you rest. You go home. You stop trying to win approval from people who will never give it. She picked up her bag and walked toward the door. The aide stepped aside to let her pass. Will you ever return? He asked. Sora did not answer. She simply walked out into the corridor and kept walking until she reached the docking bay where her shuttle waited. She did not run. She did not cry. She moved with the dignity of someone who had made peace with a painful decision. Across the galaxy, the same scenes repeated themselves. Human embassies closing their doors. Human ships departing from stations. Human voices falling silent in meeting halls and hospitals, schools and shelters. The council had expected protest. They had prepared for arguments, for negotiations, for the usual human stubbornness. They were ready to explain their decision, to offer small comforts, to promise that perhaps in another century, humanity might be reconsidered. They were not ready for silence. Counselor Threnvac sent 14 messages to Ambassador Kang in the first week. All went unanswered. He sent delegations to the human embassy on his homeworld. They found the building empty, the doors locked, the lights off. They will return, he told himself. They always return. It is their nature. But deep in his heart, in the cold place where truth lived, he was beginning to wonder. The humans had never left before. They had endured insults and rejections and dismissals. They had stayed through wars and plagues and disasters. They had remained faithful to an alliance that gave them nothing in return. What had changed? What was different this time? The answer came to him slowly, like poison spreading through blood. Nothing had changed. The humans had simply reached the end of their patience. For 300 years, they had hoped that things would get better. That gratitude would come. That respect would follow. Now they had stopped hoping, and hope, once dead, is very hard to bring back to life. The last human ship in the neutral zone powered up its engines. Captain Una Park stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the viewport. Behind her, the crew worked in silence. No one spoke. No one needed to. Lieutenant Jesu Beak approached quietly. Captain, we are receiving distress signals from the mining colony on Velen 7. Their reactor is failing. They have maybe 12 hours before full shutdown. Una closed her eyes. 12 hours. 12 hours, and everyone on that colony would freeze to death. How far are we from Velen 7? 4 hours at maximum speed. 4 hours there, 4 hours back. They could save those people. They had the equipment, the expertise, the will. All it would take was a word from her, but the orders were clear. No more rescue missions. No more humanitarian aid. No more being the galaxy's safety net while the galaxy laughed at them. Set course for Earth, Una said. Her voice did not shake. Her hands did not tremble. Maximum speed. Lieutenant Jesu hesitated. Captain, I know. Una opened her eyes. They were wet, but no tears fell. I know. May whatever gods exist forgive us. Because I do not think we will ever forgive ourselves. The eternal dawn turned toward home. Behind it, the distress signal continued to pulse, unanswered, until the cold silenced it forever. 6 months passed. The galaxy began to understand what it had lost. The mining colony on Velen 7 was the first disaster. 1,200 people froze to death, waiting for help that never came. The news spread slowly, quietly. No one wanted to talk about it. No one wanted to admit that the rescue ships they had always expected simply did not exist anymore. Then came the plague. It started on 3 worlds in the Outer Rim. A mutation of an old disease that had been thought extinct. Human doctors had developed a cure decades ago, had manufactured vaccines by the millions, had distributed them freely to any world that asked. The stockpiles ran out in 6 weeks. Counselor Threnvac stood before the emergency session of the council, his silver face pale with fear. We need to contact the humans immediately. We need their medical expertise, their manufacturing capacity. Millions will die without their help. High Admiral Soren of the Hegemony Fleet laughed bitterly. Contact them? With what? They do not answer our messages. They do not respond to our delegations. They have built a wall of silence around their entire system, and we cannot break through. Then we must try harder. We must offer them what they wanted. The permanent seat, trade privileges, formal recognition. Whatever it takes. And you think that will work? Admiral Soren leaned forward, his eyes burning with frustration. You think they will forgive 300 years of insults because we suddenly need them? The humans are not fools, Counselor. They know exactly why we want them back. And it has nothing to do with respect. In the archives beneath the council hall, an ancient being named Yelu listened to the argument above. Yelu was older than most civilizations. He had watched empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. He had recorded history for 10,000 years, documenting every treaty, every war, every moment of triumph and tragedy. Now he pulled out the records on humanity. The files were enormous. 300 years of service, documented in perfect detail. Every disaster response, every medical mission, every peacekeeping operation. Yellow read through them slowly, carefully, his ancient eyes taking in information he had never bothered to look at before. What he found shocked him. Humanity had responded to 47,293 emergency calls. They had saved over 2 billion lives. They had donated medical supplies worth more than the entire budget of most planetary governments. They had trained doctors, engineers, teachers, and diplomats on hundreds of worlds, and they had never charged a single credit, not once. In 300 years, humanity had never asked for payment. They had never demanded compensation. They had never sent a bill or expected a reward. They had simply helped over and over again, because helping was what they did. Yellow closed the files and sat in silence for a long time. Then he began to write. Above him, the council continued to argue. The plague was spreading. The death toll was climbing. And no one could agree on what to do. Admiral Soren had his own problems. The border conflict with the Outer Kingdoms had been simmering for decades. Human diplomats had kept it from boiling over, arranging meetings, negotiating truces, finding compromises that satisfied both sides. Without them, the conflict exploded. The first shots were fired 3 months after the human withdrawal. A patrol ship destroyed, its crew killed. Then retaliation. Then counter-retaliation. Within weeks, 3 systems were at war. Admiral Soren sent his fleet to restore order. But his ships were built for war, not peace. His soldiers knew how to fight, not how to talk. Every attempt at negotiation failed. Every ceasefire collapsed. Every peace treaty fell apart before the ink was dry. How did the humans do it? He asked his aide one night, staring at battle reports that showed only defeat. How did they stop wars with words? His aide had no answer. Neither did anyone else. In the trade lanes between empires, piracy had become an epidemic. Human patrol ships had once kept the routes safe, volunteering their services without payment. Now those ships were gone, and the pirates had returned in force. Merchant vessels traveled in convoys, heavily armed, constantly afraid. Trade slowed to a crawl. Prices rose. Shortages appeared in markets that had never known want. And everywhere, the same question was asked. Where are the humans? On Earth, Ambassador Do Wong Kang tended his garden. The cherry trees had finished blooming, their petals scattered across the ground like pink snow. Now the trees were green and full, their leaves whispering in the summer breeze. His assistant Hound brought him reports from the galaxy. He read them all, carefully, his face showing nothing of the pain they caused. The council has voted to offer us a permanent seat, Hound said one morning. They want to negotiate terms. Doan set down his teacup. What terms? Full voting rights, trade privileges, formal recognition of our humanitarian contributions. And what do they want in return? Hound hesitated. They want us to resume emergency services immediately. They say the plague is killing thousands every day. They say the wars are spreading. They say they need us. Dohan nodded slowly. Not that they respect us. Not that they are sorry. Just that they need us. Is that not enough? The old ambassador was quiet for a long time. Outside, birds sang in the cherry trees. Children played in the streets below. Life continued, peaceful and calm, untouched by the chaos spreading through the stars. No, he said finally. It is not enough. Need is not respect. Desperation is not gratitude. If we return now, we return as servants, not as equals. We become the help they call when things go wrong and ignore when things go right. That is not an alliance. That is slavery with extra steps. Hound looked down at her hands. People are dying. I know. And every death weighs on my soul like a stone. But we cannot save the galaxy by destroying ourselves. We cannot teach them to value kindness by giving it away for free. He stood up and walked to the window. When they understand what they lost, when they truly understand, then perhaps we can talk. Until then, our silence must continue. Archivist Yellow presented his findings to the council the next day. His voice was old and thin, but every word carried weight. In 300 years, humanity asked for nothing but respect. They gave everything and expected nothing in return. And we, the great and wise Galactic Council, looked at their kindness and called it weakness. We took their gifts and gave back only contempt. He paused, letting the silence fill the chamber. Now we learn the cost of those free gifts. Now we understand what it means to be alone in the dark, calling for help that will never come. The humans did not abandon us. We pushed them away, vote by vote, insult by insult, until they had no choice but to leave. Councillor Threnvax stood up. What would you have us do? Yellow looked at him with ancient, tired eyes. Learn, understand, change, and then perhaps, if we are very lucky, find the courage to apologize. Not because we need them, but because they deserve better than we gave. The council fell silent. Outside, somewhere in the vast darkness of space, another distress signal went unanswered. Another world faced its problems alone. And on Earth, in a quiet garden beneath cherry trees, an old man watched the stars and waited for the galaxy to grow up. 1 year since the departure, the council was breaking apart. 3 minor species had already withdrawn, citing the Alliance's failure to protect them. 2 more were considering the same. Trade had collapsed by 40%. Wars burned in 8 sectors. The plague had killed 14 million before finally burning itself out. And still, the humans did not respond. The council had sent 57 formal requests for renewed contact. Delegations had traveled to the edge of human space, only to be turned away at the border. Messages were sent and ignored. Pleas went unanswered. It was as if humanity had built a wall around itself and sealed every door. General Myra of the Ashani Republic stood before the council, her voice heavy with exhaustion. She was a warrior, not a diplomat. She had spent her life fighting enemies she could see and understand. This enemy was different. This enemy was absence. We cannot continue like this, she said. Our borders are crumbling. Our people are losing faith. Every day, someone asks me when the humans will return, and I have no answer to give them. Then, we must try again, Councillor Threnvax said. We must send another delegation. A better one. With real authority to negotiate. Negotiate what? Admiral Soren slammed his fist on the table. We have offered them everything. The permanent seat. Trade rights. Formal apologies. They want none of it. Then what do they want? No one had an answer. The next morning, a small ship appeared at the edge of council space. It was human. A simple transport vessel, unarmed, traveling alone. It requested permission to dock at the main station. Permission was granted immediately. The ship landed in the diplomatic bay, and a single figure emerged. She was young, perhaps 30 years old, with short black hair and calm, dark eyes. She wore no uniform, carried no weapons, and introduced herself only as a messenger. I bring a response from Earth, she said. Councillor Threnvax hurried forward. A response? After a year of silence? The messenger did not smile. She did not frown. Her face was perfectly still, perfectly calm, like a lake without wind. You sent many messages. Earth has chosen to answer one of them. She held out a small data chip. Threnvax took it with trembling hands. That is all? General Myra asked. One chip? After everything we have offered? The messenger turned to look at her. You offered what you thought we wanted. You did not offer what we needed. And what is that? But the messenger did not answer. She simply bowed, the same bow Ambassador Kang had given a year ago, and walked back to her ship. Within minutes, she was gone, vanishing into the stars as quietly as she had arrived. The council gathered in the main chamber to view the message. Every representative was present. Every eye was fixed on the screen. Every heart was filled with hope and fear in equal measure. The chip contained no video, no images, no voice recording. Just text. Simple words on a simple screen. You'd call this too emotional, too invested, too human. Perhaps you were right, Dot. We felt too much for those who felt nothing for us. We gave our hearts to an alliance that saw our love as weakness and our sacrifice as expectation. For 300 years, we waited for you to see us as equals. For 300 years, we were disappointed. We have not closed our doors in anger. Anger fades. Anger can be overcome. What we feel is not anger. It is exhaustion. It is the weariness of a traveler who has walked too long on a road that leads nowhere. You ask what you can offer us. You list seats and privileges and apologies. But these are not gifts. These are transactions. You offer them because you need us, not because you value us. You speak of respect, but your actions show only desperation. When you learn to see kindness as strength rather than weakness, you may find us again. When you understand that empathy is not a flaw but a gift, we will be waiting. When you can look at a hand reaching out to help and feel gratitude instead of contempt, then perhaps we can talk. Until then, we wish you well. We wish you peace. We wish you the wisdom to learn from your mistakes. We will not wish you goodbye. You never acknowledged our presence enough to warrant a farewell. The message ended. The screen went dark. General Myra was the first to break the silence. She was weeping. Tears ran down her face, falling onto her uniform, and she made no move to wipe them away. No one mocked her. No one looked away, because every being in that chamber felt the same weight pressing on their hearts. The weight of shame, the weight of understanding, the weight of 300 years of cruelty coming home to roost. Counselor Threnvac sat down heavily. His hands were shaking. What have we done? He whispered. What have we done? Admiral Soren stared at the empty screen. We treated them like servants, like tools to be used and discarded. And they let us because they loved us, because they believed we could be better. And now they have stopped believing. In the archives below, Yellow recorded the moment. His stylus moved across the page, capturing every word, every tear, every moment of painful awakening. This was history. This was the day the galaxy learned what humanity truly was. Not warriors, not conquerors, not servants. Humanity was love. Humanity was hope. Humanity was the hand that reached out in darkness, expecting nothing in return. And the galaxy had slapped that hand away so many times that it had finally been withdrawn. The days that followed were quiet. No new messages were sent to Earth. No delegations were planned. The council met in smaller groups, discussing not strategy but philosophy. What did it mean to be grateful? What did it mean to respect someone who asked for nothing? What did it mean to value kindness? These were questions they had never asked before. Questions they had never needed to ask, because humanity had always been there, filling the gaps, solving the problems, making everything work. General Myra resigned her position 3 weeks later. She gave no public explanation. Those who knew her said she could no longer lead an army that had forgotten how to make peace. Admiral Soren began studying human history. He read about their wars, their mistakes, their struggles. He learned that they had once been just as cruel as any other species. They had fought and killed and conquered. But somewhere along the way, they had changed. They had looked at their own darkness and chosen to be better. The galaxy had not made that choice. The galaxy was still learning. Counselor Threnvax visited the empty human embassy on his homeworld. He walked through the abandoned rooms, touching walls that human hands had built, sitting in chairs that human diplomats had used. In one room, he found a small garden, carefully tended, now dying from neglect. He knelt beside it and began to pull weeds. Thought it was not much. It was not enough, but it was a start. On Earth, Ambassador Doan Kang read the report of the Council's reaction. Hound watched his face for any sign of satisfaction or victory. She saw none. "They are crying," she said. "They are beginning to understand." Doan nodded slowly. "Beginning, yes, but understanding is not change. Tears are not actions. We will wait. We will watch. And when they show us, truly show us, that they have learned, then we will decide." He looked up at the stars, hidden now behind clouds. "I hope they learn quickly, for their sake and for ours. Because I am old, Hound. I would like to see my people take their rightful place among the stars before I die. But I will not see us return as beggars to a table where we were never welcome." The clouds parted briefly, revealing a single star burning bright in the darkness. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was changing, slowly, painfully, but changing, and humanity waited, patient as always, for the universe to catch up. 3 years since the departure. The galaxy had changed. The wars had ended, not through conquest, but through exhaustion. The empires that had fought so fiercely had finally learned to talk to each other, had finally discovered that peace was cheaper than war. It had taken them 3 years to learn what human diplomats had known for centuries. The council still met, but its sessions were different now. There was less pride in the chamber, less arrogance. The delegates spoke more carefully, listened more closely. They had learned that words had consequences. A new holiday had been established across 700 worlds. They called it Remembrance Day, a day to remember humanity's service, a day to acknowledge what had been given and what had been lost. On that day, candles were lit in windows, prayers were spoken in temples, and children were taught about a species that had loved the galaxy, even when the galaxy did not love them back. Counselor Threnvax had become the unofficial keeper of humanity's memory. He had gathered every record, every story, every image of human kindness he could find. He shared them freely, speaking at schools and assemblies, teaching a new generation about the mistake their elders had made. "We thought strength meant standing alone," he told them. "We were wrong. True strength means standing with others. True power means lifting others up." The humans understood this. We did not. We must never forget what that ignorance cost us. On Earth, Ambassador Doan Kang still tended his garden. He was very old now, his movements slow and careful, his hair thin and white as winter clouds. But his eyes were still sharp, still watching, still waiting. Captain Una Park commanded Earth's new orbital relief force. The ships were fully equipped, fully staffed, ready to respond at a moment's notice. They waited in orbit, silent and patient, for the call that might never come, or might come tomorrow. One morning, a small ship appeared at the edge of Earth's space. It was not military. It was not diplomatic. It was a personal vessel, traveling alone, carrying a single passenger. Young Counselor Pella had been born after the departure. She had grown up on stories of human kindness, had learned from teachers who wept when they spoke of what had been lost. She was barely 25 years old, too young to remember a galaxy that had humans in it. She had come to Earth without escort, without announcement, without demands. She had come to apologize. Her ship was allowed to land. Captain Park met her at the docking bay, tall and gray-haired, still wearing the uniform of a humanitarian fleet that no longer left port. "I am Pella," the young counselor said. "I have come to speak with your leaders." "About what?" "About everything. About nothing. About 300 years of mistakes that I had no part in but feel responsible for anyway." Pella's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I know I have no right to be here. I know I represent the people who hurt you. But I had to come. I had to try." Captain Park studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. "Come aboard my ship. We will have tea." They sat in Park's quarters, drinking tea from simple cups, saying nothing for a long time. Outside the viewport, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and beautiful. "I do not know what to say," Pella admitted finally. "I have practiced speeches. I have prepared arguments. But now that I am here, they all seem meaningless." "Then do not say them. Just sit. Just be here. That is enough for now." They drank their tea in silence. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, Pella spoke again. "Will you ever return? Your ships, your doctors, your diplomats? Will they ever come back to the stars?" Captain Park set down her cup. "We never left. We simply stopped being taken for granted. We are still here, watching, waiting. When you are ready for us, truly ready, we will answer." "How will we know when we are ready?" "You will know, because you will stop asking what we can give you and start asking what you can give us. Not because you need us, but because you value us. That is the difference between using someone and loving them." Pella nodded slowly. "I think I understand. At least I am beginning to." She stood up and bowed, deep and formal, the same bow Ambassador Kang had given 3 years ago. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the tea. Thank you for not turning me away, even though you had every right to." "You are welcome," Park said. "And Pella? Tell your council something for me. Tell them that kindness is not a weakness. Tell them that empathy is not a disease. Tell them that the strongest thing a person can do is care about someone who cannot give them anything in return. If they can understand that, truly understand it, then we will come back. Not as servants, not as tools, as friends." Pella left Earth that evening. Her report to the council was simple and short. She did not recommend new negotiations. She did not propose new treaties. She simply told them what Captain Park had said and asked them to think about it, and they did. 3 months later, the first human ship appeared in council space. It was unmarked, traveling alone, responding to a distress call from a small colony on the edge of nowhere. The colony's water purifiers had failed. Without help, 3,000 people would die of thirst. The ship was commanded by Lieutenant Jisoo Beek, now a captain herself. She had volunteered for the mission without hesitation, without orders, without waiting for permission. When the colony asked why she had come, she said simply, "Because someone was hurting." That was always enough. She did not stay to be thanked. She did not ask for payment or recognition. She simply fixed the problem and left, disappearing into the stars as quietly as she had arrived. But the story spread, and more ships followed. Slowly, carefully, humanity began to return to the stars. Not as the galaxy's servants, but as its conscience. Not because they were needed, but because they chose to help. Each act of kindness was freely given, expecting nothing in return. This time, the galaxy noticed. This time, the galaxy said thank you. On Earth, Ambassador Dohan Kang sat in his garden as autumn leaves fell around him. His assistant Hound brought him the latest reports from the stars. Human doctors were treating patients on 12 worlds. Human engineers were rebuilding infrastructure on 20 more. Human diplomats were mediating disputes that had festered for decades. "We're going back," Hound said. Slowly, but we are going back. Dahuan smiled, the first real smile he had allowed himself in 3 years. No, we are not going back. We are moving forward. What we had before was broken. What we are building now is something new. Something better. Do you think it will last? The old man looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. I do not know. The galaxy is vast, and change is slow. But for the first time in a long time, I have hope. Not because they need us, but because they are learning to love us. And that, Hound, is worth waiting for. Hound sat down beside him. Together, they watched the stars come out, one by one, like candles being lit across the universe. Somewhere out there, a human ship was answering a call for help. Somewhere out there, a grateful voice was saying thank you. Somewhere out there, kindness was being given and received, freely, openly, without condition. This was what humanity had always wanted. Not power, not glory, not even respect. Just connection, just understanding, just the simple joy of being seen. The galaxy had taken 300 years to learn that lesson. It had taken 3 years of absence to teach it, but in the end, the lesson was learned. And humanity, patient as always, was there to welcome them home. The stars continued to turn. The universe continued to expand. And in the space between worlds, where darkness had once ruled alone, a new light was growing. The light of kindness. The light of empathy. The light of a galaxy finally ready to love. And humanity smiled and reached out its hand and began again.